Big matchup on the road for the Texas Longhorns this weekend. Can they get a big win against the Arkansas Razorbacks on Saturday? We discuss on today's episode of Locked on Longhorns.
You are Locked on Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked on Longhorns brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked on College for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode, the three keys to beating Arkansas on Saturday and continuing Texas' potential path to the SEC championship and, of course, the college football playoffs. In the second segment, Texas number 3 in the latest college football playoff rankings, the highest ranked SEC team. We discussed that in the second segment. And then in the last segment, the Texas basketball team, after a season opening loss to Ohio State, 2 big wins, although against inferior opponents, 2 big wins in their last 2 games. We discuss all of that and more on today's episode of Locked on Longhorns, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Texas and Arkansas on Saturday, a big rivalry renewed at Arkansas. It's going to be an electric environment, and hopefully for Texas, they can take the air out of the crowd really quickly, right? I know it's going to be 11 a.m. The schedule maker certainly did Texas a favor in terms of making it an 11 a.m. game, instead of a 6:30 at night game. There's only so much alcohol you can consume before 11 a.m. I'm not challenging anybody, but probably going to be a little bit less rowdy at 11 than they would be at 6:30. But nonetheless, we know Arkansas hates us bad, right? They hate us real bad. They're going to be fired up. They're going to be revved up. And the Texas Longhorns have to go into a hostile environment and once again take the crowd out of it as soon as possible. We saw that game on Saturday night where Alabama went into LSU and, just took the crowd out of it immediately, had them leaving in the third quarter. I don't know if we can do that, but we have to go into a hostile environment and make it Texas environment. And I think we can do that on Saturday. The 3 keys to beating Arkansas. So when you look at this rivalry, Texas and Arkansas have faced off 79 times, right? Saturday will be the 80th matchup between these two programs. 79 times. Texas has dominated the matchup, 56 wins to 23 wins for Arkansas. But the last 2 games against Arkansas have not been pretty. So even though Texas has dominated the matchup, Arkansas has gotten us, and they've gotten us good the last couple of times. The last 2 meetings, Steve Sarkisian's second game as the head coach of the Texas Longhorns, the game that turned off many Texas Longhorn fans to Hudson Card. I think a lot of Texas fans still, have some disdain for Hudson Card because of that game. It wasn't all his fault, but Texas lost 40-21 in 2021. In the second game of Steve Sarkisian's tenure, his first loss as the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. So I'm hoping that he takes this game personally on Saturday, and pull some tricks out of his bag like he did against Florida. I think he gets deep in his bag on Saturday against Arkansas. And in 2014 in the Texas Bowl, 31-7. So the last 2 times that Arkansas has played Texas, they've beaten us by double digits. It's time to return the favor on Saturday and beat Arkansas by double digits. And this is an Arkansas team that in their last 2 home games against LSU and against Ole Miss, they've been outscored by 56 points, right? They lost by 24 to LSU and they lost by 32 to Ole Miss. I made the bold prediction that Texas will be the 3rd straight team to go into Arkansas and beat them by 20 plus points. But of course, you got to do it. And this is the keys. These are the 3 keys to taking care of business against Arkansas. I think the first thing is the defense has to set the tone early. Like I said, the crowd is going to be riled up. They're going to be giving the team a lot of momentum. I think the team is going to be fired up. Just a big rivalry game. We know everybody turns up a little bit. They turn it up, an extra notch when they're playing against Texas. And this may be the best offense that Texas has faced all year, right? And so you don't want them to, get momentum. You don't want them to pick up key first downs, score points, have that building rocking. You want to quiet them down early, stop all of their momentum, force a couple 3 and outs, force some turnovers, and get the ball back to your offense and let us make plays, put points on the board, and once again, shut that crowd up maybe by 11:30 or 12 Central right on Saturday. When you look at it, like I said, this may be the best offense that Texas has faced all year. And the narrative is, yeah, Texas may have the best stats in the country defensively, but who have they played? They said that before we played Georgia, and then they were like, well, it's Georgia. Carson Beck can't stop turning the ball over, right? Now people are saying the best quarterback we played this year is Diego Pavia, whatever. Right. I'm excited for the Texas defense to continue to show up, continue to be elite against an offense that has graded and is statistically one of the best in the country. When you look at it, Arkansas is second in the SEC in terms of yards per game offensively and yards per play, only behind Ole Miss, right? So they have been able to accumulate yards at a high clip this year, right? A very explosive offense. Bobby Petrino is back, and he's certainly been in his bag, dialing some shit up. You know what I mean? This year for the Arkansas Razorbacks. This is the 11th best passing offense in the country, right behind Texas. Right, Texas is number 10 in the country in terms of passing. Arkansas is number 11, and this is also the number 32 run offense in the country as well. So one of the best offenses just cumulatively. They can run the ball at a high clip. They can pass the ball even better. And like I said, Bobby Petrino has done a really good job of deploying his weapons. So it's going to be a tough test for this Texas defense. This team has scored in different games, right? 70, albeit against Arkansas Pine Bluff. They still put 70 on the board and kind of took their foot off the gas after that. And then they scored 58 in conference play against Mississippi State. So this is a team that can put some points on the board. And in a loss, the game did go to double overtime, but they put up 648 yards against Oklahoma State in either the second or third game of the season. So like I said, this very well could be the best offense that the Texas defense has faced up until this point this year. And when you look at it, they have a three-headed monster that the Texas defense really has to, be in control of and kind of limit on Saturday. The quarterback, Taylon Green, he did get hurt in their last game against Ole Miss and that shellacking. I mean, they were down 30. It didn't make sense to keep him in the game anyway. All signs from Sam Pittman seem that he will be healthy and active for this game. I believe he's been a full participant in practice throughout the bye week. And when you look at his stats this year, 2,214 passing yards and 411 rushing yards. So that's what you would classify as a dual threat quarterback, somebody that can beat you with his arm and his legs. Texas is going to have to do a good job of limiting him. Jaquindon Jackson, a familiar name, obviously former Texas quarterback that went to Utah and played running back, and now he is at Arkansas. Has not played since October 19th, but it does seem like he is leaning towards playing against Texas because why wouldn't he, right? The school that he started out against, Texas kid, he's been out almost a month, and, it's just the University of Texas. Of course, Jaquindon Jackson is going to get healthy right before he plays the Longhorns, and he was averaging almost 100 yards a game before the injury. Like I said, this is a team that runs the ball really well, and obviously they're probably going to run it a little bit better with Jaquindon Jackson in the game. And this is a Texas team that just gave up 197 rushing yards to Florida, right? And so you're going to have to do a really good job of stopping Taylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson in the running game to be able to win on Saturday. And then at wide receiver, Andrew Armstrong, one of the best wide receivers in the country, 857 yards in just 9 games this season. Now, only 1 touchdown, so he hasn't done a good job of getting into the end zone and scoring, but still, once again, 857 yards in just 9 games this season. 88.6 receiving grade, according to Pro Football Focus. That is elite, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, one of the best wide receivers in the country. And he lines up on the outside 91% of the time. So you're not going to see him in a slot too much, lining up 91% of the time on the outside. So Malik Muhammad and Jahdae Barron, depending on where he lines up, will have their hands full stopping one of the best wide receivers in the country, Andrew Armstrong. Once again, this could be the best offense that the Texas defense has gone against up until this point this year. It's going to be a big matchup, and I think they're going to have to set the tone early and let that Arkansas offense know that it's going to be tough sledding and take that crowd out of the game. The second key to victory is you need to continue to push the ball down the field. We saw it against Florida, the renewed confidence with Quinn Ewers pushing the ball down the field. Of course, Florida was missing 4 starting DBs, so that could have been reason for it. But this is a great opportunity where you have a Texas offense that can hit you over the head, with the deep ball, and an Arkansas defense that has given up a lot of explosive plays in the passing game. So when you look at it, Arkansas has the 125th ranked passing defense in the country out of like 134 teams, right? So that's kind of how the Texas passing defense looked last year. Bad, right? And so, like I said, it's one of those, I don't know what the opposite of iron sharpens iron is, or you know what I mean? But, it's like they do something really poorly and Texas does it really well on the opposite end. And so we should be able to come in and take advantage of that, especially with Steve Sarkisian. And like I said, the way that Quinn Ewers is playing coming off of that Florida game, they've allowed 29 explosive plays in the passing game this year. That's the Arkansas defense. 29 explosive passing plays this year. That's going to be passing plays of 20 plus yards. For perspective, I know that Texas has been one of the best defenses in the country, but Texas has only allowed 14. So Texas has allowed less than half the 20-plus yard plays that Arkansas has, 29 in just 9 games. So you're averaging giving up 3 20-plus yard plays per game. 3 per game, like averaging. I know that doesn't sound like a lot because you're used to seeing Texas do it all the time. That's a lot for one defense in one game to do it essentially every game. And Texas is coming off of a game where they had 9 of them, right? 9 passing plays of 20-plus yards, and that's not including 2 where DeAndre Moore just flat out dropped one of them and then the other one bobbled it and couldn't get his foot down in the end zone, right? So Texas could have had 11 passing plays of 20-plus yards in this game, and you're going against one of the worst defenses in the country in terms of stopping the explosive pass, right? And when you look at it, Quinn Ewers, to me, had his best game of the season, had his highest average depth of target by far. Like I said, he was hovering around 9.4 against the Florida Gators. His highest passing grade, according to Pro Football Focus, since the Michigan game at 72.5. His highest NFL passer rating. I think, one of the best things I love about Pro Football Focus is they give an NFL passer rating to the college players. So you can see how it would be graded on an NFL schedule. 151.7 for Quinn Ewers against Florida. I think a perfect passer rating is 158.3. So he was inching pretty close to being damn near perfect against the Florida Gators. And then a career high 5 touchdown passes. So the Texas Longhorns came out, threw it all over the yard against the Florida Gators. There will be some of the same opportunities against the Arkansas Razorbacks. And to win this game, you need to take advantage of those opportunities. And then my last key to victory for the Texas Longhorns against the Arkansas Razorbacks, this is one of those matchups that could decide the game, right? When you look at it, this Arkansas run defense has been really good this year. The 36th ranked rushing defense going against the Texas rushing offense, which, this is completely uncharacteristic for a Steve Sarkisian offense and what we're used to seeing at the University of Texas, even in the tough times. 61st ranked rushing offense in the country. You cannot allow Arkansas to make you one-dimensional. I think Quinn Ewers is a really good quarterback, and he was able to throw the ball all over the yard against Florida without establishing a run game last week in the first half. But I don't think you want to take that chance again, right? I don't think you want to go into this game and say, we're just going to throw the ball, have no run game, and Quinn Ewers can lead us to victory. Just throwing the ball. And I think if they can force him to be one-dimensional, they can force him to throw the ball 40-plus times, they possibly can force Quinn Ewers into some turnovers. He has been turnover-prone this season. So you want to be able to go in there, establish the run, be two-dimensional on offense, keep the defense off balance, and really open up passing lanes with that play-action pass if they have to be worried about stopping Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue. And my keys to getting the running game going and for Texas to not be one-dimensional is obviously the offensive line and Gunnar Helm have to win their matchups, right? We didn't see that against Georgia. We did not see that against Vanderbilt. We saw it a little bit more, even though it's really the backups that got the offensive line and the running game going. The backup offensive line that got the running game going against Arkansas. I think, hold on. I said backup offensive line got the running game going against Arkansas. I meant Florida, right? But now, the starting offensive line led by Kelvin Banks and Gunnar Helm, they're going to have to win their matchups in this game against Arkansas and open up easy lanes for Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue. Not sure how much we'll see of Jared Gibson just because this may be a closer game, and he did fumble against Florida. So we know how Tashard Choice feels about, fumbles. Then I think that Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue, they just have to be special. Right? They have to come out and be special in this game and make explosive plays in the running game. I think the wide receivers need to make key blocks. Typically, when you see those big running games or rushing gains down the field, it's because the wide receivers are making key blocks on the outside, and so they need to do their part. And then I think you need to supplement the run game by letting Ryan Wingo or Isaiah Bond touch the ball in the running game. That's been really good for us this year. Big 55-yard run by Ryan Wingo against Michigan. We've seen multiple, I think 2 or 3 20-plus yard runs for Isaiah Bond this season. I know Steve Sarkisian is going to be in his bag, and I think we see 1 or 2 of those in this game that really helps out the run game, especially if Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue are struggling. or that offensive line can't get a push up front. So those are my 3 keys to victory in a big rivalry game against Arkansas on Saturday. Once again, stopping their offense early, taking the momentum out of the crowd, pushing the ball down the field against one of the worst pass defenses in the country, and not being one-dimensional on offense, getting a run game going and controlling the ball, controlling the time of possession, and putting points on the board against Arkansas. Quick word from our sponsors, and then we talk about Texas being the number 3 team in the college football playoff rankings. All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, Texas comes in at number 3 in the college football playoff rankings after coming in at number 5 in the initial college football playoff rankings. I know, once again, Oregon was number 1. Ohio State was number 2. I think Texas was number 3. Indiana was number 4, and I can't remember who was number 5. But, does it really matter? The Texas is the number 3 team in the college football playoff rankings. Obviously, still a lot of games to be played. 3 games for most teams still left on the schedule. And then you have the championship games that will determine the final college football playoff rankings. But it's good to see Texas rewarded, even though a couple teams did lose. It's good to see Texas rewarded for a dominant performance against the Florida Gators, winning that game 49-17. And, as we've really said all season, and even after the Georgia loss, this Texas team, the way that they've been playing, I know people like to say, they haven't beaten a team that's, currently ranked in the top 25. It's not our fault. Oklahoma, Michigan, Vanderbilt, decided to fall off the face of the earth after they played Texas. But nonetheless, Texas has still played good enough football in a premier conference, the SEC, to control their own destiny in terms of, being one of those top 4 teams, hopefully in the college football playoffs, and then having a first round bye and having to only win 3 games to win your first national championship since 2005. So when you look at it, in terms of controlling your own destiny, what is that destiny, right? Obviously, it starts with the first 3 regular season games. You got to put one foot in front of the other. You got to take care of business in a tough environment on Saturday against Arkansas. Like I said, I know this is an Arkansas team that's been beat up at home. I know this is a Texas team that right now is just on a different level than Arkansas and should win this game. Double-digit spread set by Vegas, so Texas Vegas expects Texas to go in there and take care of business. But it's the SEC. It's a rivalry game. We've seen what happens the last 2 times Texas has faced off against Arkansas. So you got to go in there and take care of business. Then you come back home to DKR against Kentucky. I don't really believe that Kentucky can put up a fight against Texas. But once again, you got to go out there and play the games. Anything can happen in an SEC matchup, especially this late in the season when attrition may start to kick in. Players are hurt, tired. They're dealing with class schedules as well. You're at home, maybe you rest on your laurels. I don't think that'll happen with this Texas team, though. We've seen a really strong culture that's been implemented by Steve Sarkisian. And then in the last game of the season, the Lone Star shut down a really tough matchup against Texas A&M on the road. It's going to be a really tough game for the Texas Longhorns. You're going to have to go in there and take care of business in that game. If you can win these next 3 games against Arkansas, Kentucky, and Texas A&M, then Texas will be in the SEC championship game. It remains to be seen who their opponent will be if they take care of business in the next 3 games. Right now, Tennessee is right there with Texas in terms of 1 loss, SEC teams in conference. Texas A&M is as well, but of course that'll be determined in the Lone Star Showdown with Texas and Texas A&M playing each other. Tennessee does have the big matchup on the road against Georgia on Saturday. They have not fared well in this matchup recently, and all the talk right now is that Nico Iamaleava may not even play because he's in concussion protocol. So it's going to be a tough game for Tennessee, period, going into Georgia whether they have Nico or not, especially with Georgia coming off of a loss. Kirby Smart is going to motivate those boys and have them ready. I think they said it's been 89 days since Georgia's played a home game, so they're going to be, hyped up to play in front of their home crowd. But especially if they don't have Nico, even with that Tennessee defense that's one of the best in the country, it's going to be really tough, right? There's still potential for Georgia to find a way in there. Ole Miss, it's going to get really crazy over the next couple of weeks. But nonetheless, if Texas takes care of business, these next 3 games, they will find themselves in the SEC championship game and should have a really good chance to win it, regardless of who they have to line up against in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. And then if you can win the SEC championship game, once again, you are guaranteed that first round bye in the playoffs. And you have 3 games rather than 4 if you lose it or don't make it to the SEC championship game. 3 games to hoist that trophy and win the national championship. So Texas taking care of business. Once again, number 3 team in the college football playoff rankings. Beat Kentucky, beat Arkansas, beat Texas A&M, go into the SEC championship game. All right. Anything can happen. I'm not going to be mad if they lose the SEC championship game. I think it's a blessing, especially in year 1, just to get there. But you do want the opportunity to only have to play 3 games in the playoffs rather than 4 to win the national championship. I know there's people that are chomping at the bit to have a playoff game in DKR. And as special as that sounds, it's about hanging banners, right? It's about hoisting trophies. 3 games to win a championship or 4 games to win a championship. You know my answer. Give me 3, right? You know what I mean? Give me 3 games to win a national championship. We'll worry about the playoff game in DKR later. All right, a quick word from our sponsors, and then we talk about the Texas basketball team heating up over the last couple of games, albeit against inferior opponents. Trey Johnson, not just looking like one of the best freshmen in the country, looking like one of the best players in the country. We discuss. All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Outside of the Gametime Picks, all-in pricing toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so the Texas basketball team did not start off with great news to open the season. First, number 19 in the country, highly anticipated matchup in Vegas against Ohio State. And I believe Ohio State led that game really from jump, right? From, start to finish, winning 80-72 ultimately. And so Texas lost and then was no longer ranked after starting the season 0-1. Really didn't have much margin for error, being the number 19 team in the country. And then right after that, right, it was like, when it rains, it pours. You find out that Tremont Mark is out indefinitely with that ankle injury. When you hear the word indefinitely, I mean, it's indefinite. It's just like kind of exactly what it sounds like. You really just don't know. And we really don't know, when we're going to see Tremont Mark this season. If we're going to see Tremont Mark this season, potentially your best player, that is a huge blow. But the way that the schedule is set up, you did play Ohio State, but then you had a couple of matchups against some teams that you should take care of business against, and Texas has taken care of business against. So they played Houston Christian and Chicago State last night, and they were able to beat up on both teams pretty badly. They beat Houston Christian 90-59, led by Trey Johnson, 28 points. 5 more threes. He made 5 threes against Ohio State, came back against Houston Christian and made 5 threes. Arthur Kaluma also gave you 15 points and 10 rebounds. 6 players in double figures in that game and shot just under 50% from the 3-point line. So we saw in the first game, horrible 3-point shooting, kind of gave us PTSD from last season against Houston Christian, albeit we're able to knock down some threes. Trey Johnson, once again, was a superstar, 28 points. Arthur Kaluma kind of stepped up as that number 2 option, where we're kind of seeing them in the first game, struggling to find their offensive roles. And then this Texas team just took care of business, 6 players in double figures. And then against Chicago State last night, when they gain 105-58 in the Moody Center. Trey Johnson, once again, for the third straight game as a true freshman, leading the team in scoring 19 points on 66% shooting. Through his first 3 games, he is shooting over 50% from 3 as a true freshman, right? People said he's the most talented player we've had since Kevin Durant, and he's certainly making a case for that through his first 3 games. Arthur Kaluma, once again, 15 and 8. Tariq Onyema, 18 points off the bench. But of course, when you're beating a team by almost 50 points, some bench players are going to get in and have a lot of opportunity. 50% 3-point shooting from this Texas basketball team. So they're finding their niche from the 3-point line the last couple of games. Excuse me. And then they play Mississippi Valley State on Saturday. Should be another big win for the Texas Longhorns in the Moody Center, right? So, like I said, lost to Ohio State. You've played some inferior competition, but it's good to see this Texas basketball team getting into a rhythm, right? Getting some wins and then finding out their roles on this team for when the schedule gets tougher. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On Thursday, the crossover with our Razorback host, John Neighbors. And then, of course, the SEC Squad episode dropping every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central. Hook 'em. Peace.